Hi, Dinah here from a small, dusty little town in Ethiopia. You know, this town has such special significance to me. When Mike and I first came to Ethiopia, we really didn't know why we were coming. And we met Joy here, who is the creator of all of this, God's instrument. But we didn't know her from before, and we didn't know why we were coming, but God knew. And so they were going to take us on a tour of Addis Ababa and show us the sights. But then we heard Baba say about that he had been working in this little town, and that he'd been working for 7 years, coming and talking to the Muslim leaders and the men, and they talked and they about religious beliefs, and nothing happened until 7 years. And in 7 years, finally, like 60, 70 families came to Jesus. And that's when Mike and I came. And it's about maybe 10 years ago. And so we came and we saw this place, but when we came, there wasn't a church, there was a worship tree. And that worship tree was where everybody came under, and they would have their service. And they would sit on logs, and they would have the pulpit, and the preacher would preach. They even had their little choir, their little worship group come up and sing praises. And the children all sat around, and in the Sunday school, more or less, but it was all under the big worship tree. They had been given this property by the Ethiopian government, but they didn't have a church. And so the Muslims were urging the government to take it back because they hadn't done anything to improve it. And so we stood in a circle and we prayed. And we prayed that God would raise up a church. And Mike and I got very involved in this project. This church is the result of those prayers. We came, Mike and I, to the dedication of the church, and what an exciting time for the believers in this area. Since then, they have added hundreds more. They built schools, kindergartens here, and the kindergartens serve the poorest children in the surrounding community. So the elders, and they're all Muslim, come together and they decide which children need to come. And there are about 60 children who come. They're all sponsored. They get protein and bread at lunch every day, so at least they're getting that. And they learn their ABCs, and they learn their language, how to count. But this is such an amazing goodwill gesture on the part of the Christians, but little did they know that it would also save this compound and probably save lives. They had an uprising here, and men came, and they had torches and machetes and spears, and they came to the gate of this place, and they were going to burn it down. But the men from the village came out and stood in front of the gate, and they said, "You don't touch this. This place is our place. You do not harm this place." And ultimately, they turned around and walked away, and this little church and school was, it was spared. Right now, it's very dangerous here because you have it's called the Oromo Separatists, and they are militant Muslims, and they attack anything that isn't Oromo. So they have built here a training center for Muslims who come to the Lord, and then they can go for 20 days And Zerahun teaches them and immerses them in the Bible and in Christian principles. And it's built, it's ready, but they have to put it on hold because it would be too dangerous for these men to come and stay for 20 days here. And so we're just waiting on the Lord. They pray. These are men of faith. It's pretty amazing. And so they just pray, and they're waiting for things to settle down so that they can open the worship center and open the training center so they can send more missionaries out on the field. This whole thing is it's like it was in Acts. It's how it was in the time after Christ died, and so many men came to the Lord and families came to the Lord, and then they started going out in their surrounding communities. And it's so very much like that. And they got beaten and stoned and dragged away and hurt and even killed, like Stephen. And yet, they persevere. These people love Jesus so much that they know the cost and they persevere. This little church has just a lot of special meaning to me, because when they dedicated it, Mike stood up on the altar at the pulpit and with Abeba to translate, and he did the dedication of this church. So this place has a very, very special place in my heart. Anyway, to look at the fruit that God is bringing about of one woman's vision, Joy Casey, who, when we started, there was nothing here. And now, look at this place. And actually, everywhere she lands in Ethiopia, God uses her to make orphanages, schools, churches, so many churches, and feeding the poor. They have a drought in this area, and also a little further away, people were dying, just dying of starvation. And so Joy and her people took in, they fed, what did they say, 150,000 people. And so they were able to feed these people. Also, they were able to be a testament to Jesus' love, because they fed anyone who needed it, not just Christians. They gave food to anybody who needed it. And so the Muslims saw that, and they said, you don't just give to your religion, you give to anybody who needs it, anybody who's hungry, that's who you give to. And they were very, very impressed with that. And so there is such a statement being made here for Jesus, and people are turning to the Lord. But there's also opposition, because Satan doesn't like that. And so at this point in time, this area is fraught with a lot of instability and a lot of problems. Anyway, signing off from the place in Ethiopia that I love.